Morning. Welcome to the office hours for December. We're going to be talking about archival collections, and how to get your paper collections out there and online. This is going to go over a lot about what we've been working on in the NHPRC grant that we received a couple years ago and are just finishing up, about how people are progressing, what kind of things you can do with it, how you want to get your things out there. So I'm starting actually with the public portal, so folks can see what our end goal is in getting these things available. This is the new and updated portal that we were able to do because of the NHPRC grant. We are already making lists of things to continue to add to it and upgrade and that kind of thing. But this serves both object collections and archival collections. The institutions is just a list of the participating institutions that we try to get everybody listed, even if you're not actually ready to go live with your collections yet. So you can start up here. You can start a couple different ways. You can go straight to this, or we click at the top, you have collections. You can do the guide for hopefully a brief thing of how to get through and search for collections on the portal, and go straight to objects or straight to archives. You can also go by institution to see if you're looking to see what a particular institution has up, and just to see a little bit more about that institution. But I'm going to go to archives. And this is what shows up for folks who have public collections right now. We hope to be adding a bunch more to this very soon as grantees that we're working with traveling archivists and working on getting their paper collections into the system, add them in, and are a good place to be public, and it'll be published here. As always, I'm going to start with Fairfield because I know it's there and it's easier to get to for me. So I'm going to start with Fairfield, and it'll come up like this and have kind of the first blurb of your collection, the collection name, and you can go straight to it. One of the really cool things that we're able to do with this system, which is one of the reasons I love it so much, having come from a system where the archives and paper were here and the objects were over here and they couldn't talk to each other. We can talk to each other because it's all within the same system. My example of this is going to be the Couch family papers. So if I click anywhere in here, I'm going to get the standard kind of finding aid format that we've got. History elements, scope and content, all this kind of stuff as it goes down. As I said on previous recordings at Fairfield, we are still going through and getting a lot of these records transferred over because we had existing paper finding aids for ages. So we're very slowly but surely starting to enter this in. So that's why it's not got a lot of contents down here at the bottom. But one of the things you do see is Simon Couch's Bible that we have in the collection, if we entered that as an object record. But we've related it to the family papers because it came out of there. But we've used this Bible in exhibitions, and there's a couple really interesting things in there that we want to continue to use this kind of as an artifact in a way. So you can link to it directly here, and you can see it. This is when it's been out on exhibit, or before it's been out on exhibit, actually. But you can see it kind of is in here as part of the Couch family papers. How this relates from the back end, from our end, I'm going to take a quick look at, and then we can kind of get into how we've gone about things with the Finding Aid project. So hop over to Fairfield. And as usual, I've got our sandbox page open. I've got Fairfield open, and then whatever else we need. So I'll try to warn you when I'm popping back and forth. So let me just go straight and look at Couch is the easiest for me to find that collection. Not the object right away. We're looking for collections. This is also a word as you're looking for things too, because especially if you're coming up with a name that shows up in a lot of stuff, and you're like, but I just want the collection. I don't want every single thing related to it. If you go to your full results, I can pick it up. It's right there. This is just for example. So we've got all this stuff. Pretend this wasn't coming up first. If you go up to the refine results, I think it looks like weaving or like those little things you widget back and forth with on like a soundboard mixer that you see on videos and stuff. You can go by types and filter down. So we've got collections in this group and we've got files. So I'm going to click on collections and couch family papers. Now we've got other family papers that show up when I search couch because they're related. But this gives me actually the one that I'm looking for right here. So we can go into that. So I'm starting out here on the left-hand side. Many of you are already familiar with the setup with this. Your main bunch of information and individual fields are in this center bit. And on the left-hand side, we have the different pages that we can go to for a specific thing that we're looking for. Subjects, notes, anything like that. For purposes of this, we're going to go to related material. Now this, as far as related as is like the standard finding aid fields. So it gets kind of confusing because you're talking about two different kinds of relations. This is related materials as far as any originals that might be around. Like if you're putting your research and reference files in, your vertical files in, and you've got copies, but you know where the original is. We've got a copied journal from a family. It's not part of the actual accession, if you will, collection, but we've got a copy of it within the finding aid, but we have a note in this field of where the original still is and that the owner would like to give it to us someday. That's noted somewhere else. Existence and locations of copies, if you've copied something for anybody. Related archival materials right here. And this will kind of give you, if you hover over it, kind of the standard definition of that. Other archival materials that are closely related to the materials being described either in your same repository or in other repositories or elsewhere. So this is just a standard archivist finding aid field. This is a free text field. You can put things here. Like we've got a big Gustav Whitehead collection. Like if I knew of other Gustav Whitehead collections, I could put that there and say, yes, there's a museum in Germany that's got a whole collection of his stuff. Should go in something like that. As far as relationships to other things within your system, much like you do in objects, you can go to relationships, and these will link the things within your system already. So we've got related entities, related objects, related lot, and storage locations. I was talking with somebody just before we started about how you want to relate your physical objects in your collection to any archives that you might have to relate to these people. So we've got here, this would be a great place to put this, and for our other conversation that we had previous to this. So I did not relate that Bible to this thing yet in this section. I don't know why I related it in a different way. So just for kicks for now, even though it's related somewhere else, I'm going to add it here. And it should, it's automatically linking. You've got the little gear turning, and there it is. So I can link that directly there. And you've got your drop down of whether it's something it's contained in this or is related to. I always get mixed up on this because it says contains, and I don't want to put it the wrong way. I'm just going to say related to, even though this Bible is part of that manuscript collection. But we're going to put that there. So as we go back up to the identity elements here, where you've got this kind of horizontal hierarchy of how things are added, you can also add actual objects within that hierarchy. I usually do this because a physical object doesn't usually have like a box location kind of thing. They usually tend to be down at the end is like oversized or something else, as opposed to being in like series, sub-series all of that kind of thing. But you can add them as a separate thing. And I've got these kind of as a file, because I think honestly, that's how they were originally noted in there as oversized items, housed somewhere else. So you can add those things here as add an object. So this Bible was part of that collection. So it should be here as that oversized item kind of thing. Adding things the other way, that's great if you've got things that aren't even part of that collection. You've got a couple other objects that don't have anything to do with the papers. It just happens to relate to that collection. So if somebody comes in saying, I'm looking for anything and everything having to do with the Couch family, I can look at the family papers here and see, the objects that I've linked here, but then I can go to relationships and see that there's another thing. It's the same thing, but you get what I mean. And that can go there. So also, when we go to the actual Couch Family Bible record, object record, as I put it as an object, looks like your typical object thing here and goes down. One of the things especially useful for those oversized items within your manuscript collections, and this is again noting that we're editing physical objects, so we're back in that objects part of the module. You can maintain a different physical location and change it for the objects. So as you go down to your regular pages and we go to location here, comes like you'd normally see it. This one is actually housed in our manuscript collection. So we would search for it how we've named it and what we may have noted in that record. So I'm going to go to that MS5 Couch Family Collection and it'll be around there. If it's somewhere else, especially I've got a couple ceramic commemorative plates in the collection that came in with these family collections that at the time they put as part of the manuscript collection as like an oversized object. You can put a different object for that. I'm not going to leave that with the manuscripts. I'm going to put that with the ceramics. So you can find that as you need to. But you've also got, for something like this, at the very top of your locations, most of you will always see this as being a really weird, just closed, grayed out bar. If you pop this down and click Show Hierarchy, it's showing you the hierarchy of where this thing appears within that family archival collection. So in the Couch Family Papers collection, there's this box series. Then we also have 2 of his ledgers. So the way they organized it at the time is that box series, and then they had those oversized items. They were counting those as like individual file level almost, because they had them in folders and boxes, so they just called them that. Along with this other series, when you pull that out, then you get into the standard file, bills, business correspondence, all that stuff as you go down. For our purposes at Fairfield, most of these aren't going to have that physical location. It's going to have that, it's within this manuscript location, because I know in any of our librarians and other staff know just to go to MS5 Couch Family Collection on the shelves and you'll find it in that spot. But this kind of shows the original kind of place in the order that they have it. Now going back to the public portal, and we go to institutions, we'll go to browse, we're going to scroll down to Fairfields, view this, and we've got our featured galleries just to Fairfields. Browse all of the objects, and then we've also got view archives, and you're going to get a very similar screen to that first public portal screen. And when we go to the Couch Family Papers and this, click on the view this time, we're going to get that same click on the collection to the left. And when we go to that Bible, it goes right back to that Bible. So it's very circular. Because it's listing that there, and we'll show this on this bit here. So what we've been doing as part of this grant, let me go back to the sandbox. Is folks who have archival collections, and I know many people think of all of their stuff that they have as the archive. Fine, that's what you guys call it. That's what it's known as to you. We differentiate between objects being like, usually we'll say museum objects versus archival collections. And we're talking about pieces of paper, handwritten, published or unpublished, honestly. Manuscripts are going to be obviously handwritten, but papers can be anything, anything paper 2D kind of thing. We've got, let me go into the collections here. So again, this is practice in the sandbox. So you're going to see a lot of like random stuff in here. This is just for you guys to play around and look and see what things are here. There's a couple that are usually right at the top, but I think, oh, I'm gonna go into my standard Bugs Bunny collection of stuff. So part of this archives grant we have used to be a place for everybody to come and find how to deal with your paper collections, how to process them, how to get them out there so people can find things. Old Ned in the corner that hangs out every Thursday afternoon from 1 to 3 may know everything there is to know about this particular collection. But if he's not there someday, if he goes off to a vacation in Tahiti and someone comes in and says, I want to see your Bugs Bunny collection, what do you have? I need to see a specific letter from 1945 or correspondence between him and Babs Bunny in 1945, you're going to go, well, sorry, Ned's on vacation. He's going to be back in like 2 months. Is that cool? You want to get your basis of this collection out there so people know that you have it. A, so people know you have it, and B, so you guys can even find things in it if the person who really knows that collection isn't around. Because we all know there's somebody in every institution, there's always that one person who really knows the particular collection really well. And that just comes with time and working with the collections, honestly. So what we've been doing, aside from the overall becoming a resource, we do have a series of videos on YouTube that we did in 2022 at this point now, about how to deal with archives. And there are 4 archivists on here going through different aspects of all of that. This is really good to go back to and view. They're covering different things, so it's good to go back and rewatch things for different purposes in a way. We have the basics of archival stuff up here, acquisition and appraisal. That was the first one. That one is almost, I would almost not watch that one first. I would watch it afterwards after you get kind of the fundamentals below that. And because this is more talking about you going out and acquiring things. And there are a lot of things on there that you do want to take into account if somebody walks up and hands you a couple boxes of stuff and says, here, this is for you, whether you want to keep it or not. But then going down to the fundamentals of archival arrangement and description is really getting into, but what do you do with all the backlog? Because everybody's got that aisle that you don't want to go down. I had one of my old collection when I was in graphics years ago that every time I went down that aisle, I just kind of did this because I knew what was there and I was too afraid that I'd go, oh yeah, I need to process. Oh yeah, it was too scary. This is a great one to go through to figure out how you want to do archival arrangement and description of what you've got. Part 3 about finding aids gets really into the nitty gritty. if you're using something like Archive Space, which a lot of folks were using because it's free, we're using to get onto Connecticut's archives online. We'll talk about that a little bit too. Really into the nitty gritty, which is great. The good thing about our existing system, this will kind of do it for you as you enter information into those fields. And it'll get you when you hit the summary at the end or the display or the report. Here's a nice, pretty finding aid. I don't know about pretty. It's a nice, workable finding aid. And we do have the preservation, storage, and housing archival collections down here, which is really good. This is something to keep in mind as you're going through and doing that archival processing, description, all of that stuff. The last one is me basically saying all of the stuff that I'm saying here. But it's basically talking about making a plan and figure out how you want to attack that back archive and work on stuff. So what we've been doing is the folks who applied to be part of this grant get a traveling archivist to come out, so an actual honest to goodness real archivist to come out to their institution, help them go through some of their papers and talk about all of the stuff covered in these videos. And then we're all helping everybody get this information into their system. Going back to Fairfields. So going from the main page, actually, no, I picked it back. I'm going to Sandbox. It's less messy than my page in that landing screen. So everybody pretty much will have counts up here. They'll show how many objects are in how many collections, how many entries, and all that. When you see this number on your counts, 173 collections, it does not mean just that collection type of like collection. That also counts series, sub-series, and all of that stuff. So don't be alarmed when you see a number that's much bigger than you think. You're like, but we have 5 collections. Why does it say 173? Because it's counting that series, sub-series thing. You can adjust that so it shows up just collections. And like I said earlier, you can filter that stuff out when you go to it here. We'll go back here. And don't forget, you always have this history button up here if you want to go back to something you were just on. I'm going to go back into that Bugs Bunny collection. You'll see at the top, and I noted this, I think, in a couple newsletters, but it might not be something that's really on your radar. There's this archives template quick entry at the top. Now, this is something that we created in everybody's system for people to be able to use with this Finding Aid project. It's a previous Word document, basically, that was created for previous projects that has all of the fields necessary for a good finding aid, a good summary finding aid, and fields necessary to be able to put up on Connecticut's archives online, which is the goal of the previous project as well. This is pulling all of those things, and I was going to show you a shot of the original one, and I can't find it. I can find it right away. Shows you the actual sheet that I copied this off of. It's very wordy, but it's giving you all of your explanations of what each field is as you get to it in one place. Especially when folks are learning the new system, they don't like having to hop around between all these different pages and having to remember what's where. This pulls everything in one place, so you can very easily, especially hand this off to your volunteers and say, here's our worksheet, here's what we need to know, this is all you need. And it can go down this way. I went through this a little bit, I think, in one of the tutorials, but it's I think, pretty straightforward, especially with all of the extra explanation. The creator, who is responsible for creating or behind the group of materials. And this is talking about the entire group of materials as a collection. One of the things we're doing for this is making sure that people create a summary finding aid and being able to have all of that stuff, just that main basic guide to that collection. We are not at this point really making everybody, for the purposes of this grant, get down to that box folder level within this system. If people have time, great. the groundwork will be there for them to do it in the future, whenever they get time to work on it and go through it. But for our purposes, we just want people to know that you have the Bugs Bunny collection. That's like the main thing out there. If someone's searching, they go, oh, you guys have that collection? Oh, and you can go through and find out when it was formed and what the acquisition information was and all of the standard fields. That I don't have any filled out in this way because I haven't bothered to make it up yet. But this is putting everything in one place. So let me see if I have. Let me pop to Fairfield for a second and go to that Couch Family Papers. Actually, I'm gonna go to another fellow. Roger Minot Sherman. His collections are pretty, a lot of them are in here. So here's that archives template quick entry thing. All of the fields that you're putting information in here, these are just copies of the main ones, so they'll all show up in the rest of it. So you don't have to go, oh, but now I have to put all this information in all these other places. No, they all, it's the same field, it's just presented a little bit differently. The same as if anybody's got like a quick data entry screen that we did for you or that you guys did. Especially great for interns and volunteers, of just like, here's the object name, here's the date, here's a quick description and related people, and that's it. Like any of those we did, it's all the same field. It just is presented a little bit differently. So in the case of this, Roger Minot Sherman papers, we're going down and putting repository, creator name, the main title, dates that are included, any information that I had in the paper finding aid is going in here. So we didn't have an abstract written up for it. We've got the biography and history and collection scope and content and all this stuff. And this is the levels down here of how things are organized. Location, the hierarchy, subject headings, all this stuff, all in this one handy page, so you don't have to hop around over here a lot. Everything filled in as you go. And very importantly, the accessible to the public. Highly recommend doing that. Oh, actually, big giant asterisk and arrow to this. As you are adding sub-series and things to this, and you go down, it'll change the fields a little bit. So now you have just a smaller selection of stuff if you get down into this more so, which is great. And everyone hopes to do it. Everyone hopes to do at some point, getting into your series and your sub-series and your files to kind of zone in on things. You have a smaller amount of things here. You still have that collection description of like what's in this series. Usually personal correspondence 1793 to 1844 is fine. In my case, a lot of the time people listed out each individual thing that was in there, which we are not generally doing. But I have it, so I add it to this. Specific dates on that specific series if I want, how many in that. A lot of this, it's not really necessary. It's there to have it. Not super necessary. But the one thing you want to do is on the admin is making these series, sub-series, etc., also need to be accessible to the public. So just making that overall collection basic info page accessible to the public, you won't get those sub-series. If you've got those series, sub-series, etc. in there, you won't see those unless those are made accessible to the public. Again, it's just kind of seems like kind of a pain. It's actually to help you guys. So if you've got the main summary part of this is complete and you're pretty happy with it, and you know you've got, 5 or 6 series, but you don't know what they are yet, you don't have any other really further information, you can make this part public access, and you don't have to worry about making that other any of these other ones public access if you're not ready to yet. Like if it just says the title, which is the same thing up here, you're like, I don't really think this makes any difference. That's fine. You'll still get, this is the summary of just that series, which this is, pretty useful for folks. Yeah, previously we had, I'm trying to fill this out a little bit more because previously it was just listed as folder A, folder B, folder C, folder, and didn't really make any sense. So I'm trying to add a little bit of a title so you can just look at it. If you're printing out a finding aid for something. Um, so as far as the main project is concerned, the main grant project is concerned, our goal for everyone is to get them a site visit from an archivist, have them have 3 collections in here as a summary level collection. This is just to get everybody the groundwork and figure out how to do some of this, and then have groundwork also laid by the archivist to help people learn how to do that series, sub-series. What does that mean? There's a big difference. There's a difference between the intellectual part of this and the physical part of this. So intellectual control will give you that series, sub-series part of it, whereas the physical control you can add whenever you need to. At Fairfield, we had tended to start doing it more as a physical thing. So it was kind of took me a minute to realize, oh, series 1 could be 4 boxes worth of stuff. When I was first looking at it, I'm like, well, box 1 is obviously series 1. Box 2 is obviously series 2. Doesn't work that way. Because that series, sub-series is really divided into the type of material and the things you're looking at. If you're coming at it from, which a lot of folks are, given General Historical Society, volunteer groups, you're coming at it from that object point of view. So you're really thinking very specifically, well, this one thing is in this one place. No, this whole series of correspondence could be 4 boxes. And that's where you can put more information here about where they're located. So in the end, it helps and becomes more useful to the outside researcher who's coming in saying, I need this one thing. You can still go to it with saying it's series 2 or it's series 1, but it's in box 4, and go from there. In your summary over here for the full thing, this is, you're going to see that much more finding aid style sheet for this. And this collection just keeps going all the way. Eventually we'll get down. Oh, and you can kind of see here at the top what I was saying, I started putting the business correspondence incoming because that was just in the description or something weird, so it didn't show up here and looked a lot more like this, which is not at all useful to anyone, because that's just how it went in. So you knew account and docket books were here, but you didn't know what any of them were. So slowly but surely, and I'm trying to, as my librarian recruits interns, have him use the interns to kind of help do some of this stuff as well, so they can go in and change. Folder D is actually correspondence from 1850 to 1890 or whatever. Because it's a lot easier to see that here than it is for the way that we started naming things here. As we've been going with this, I've told all the institutions who are taking part, if you have archival questions like that, like what's a series, what's this, how should I split it, talk to your archivist. I will be here to help you, and the rest of our team will be here to help you with how you should relate material, how you can do it in relationships, and get down into like the nitty gritty of things like that. And we'll help you with this. So now I can see in his, now I've got all these oversized items that I linked directly to this that are probably showing up here, but now we know there's definitely separate objects linked. Rather than trying to go through and figure out, oh yeah, they're at the bottom anyway, which is kind of a quick shortcut for that. So we're here to help you. The CTCo team is here to help you with the nitty gritty of the actual system. Talk to your archivist with any, how do I make this a file or a folder, or what's a subseries? That's what they're around for. And we now have a team of people we hope to in the next year do some more tutorials and webinars and things, maybe a guest office hours person on some of that kind of stuff, because I know there's definitely a need, because everybody's got those piles of papers in the back room somewhere. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Everybody have fantastic holidays, and we can do questions if anybody has any.